My name is Luis Guerra. I'm professor of constitutional law, and, and I have been for 10 years judge of the European Court of Human Rights. And now I am the chairman of the panel for selections of judges for the European Court. Yeah, and as I say at the beginning, really it's a satisfaction and an honor for me and my colleagues to participate in this meeting and to give you some information on our constitutional practice and experience in our countries. Concerning the preamble of the Spanish Constitution, the very brief preamble, I think it's important to consider the historical context in which it was approved. It was after a dictatorship of 40 years. It was after a very long constitutional history of conflicts, confrontations, and civil wars. And the idea was to, at the end of the dictatorship, to make possible a peaceful and legal transition from dictatorship to democracy. And the technique used for that was the agreement, the consensus, the pact among the different sections of the Spanish population, because we have many regional, religious, ideological, economic conflicts, and it was tried to make some kind of agreement, constitutional agreement. For this reason, the preamble was made purposely short, trying to avoid confrontations in the approbation of the Constitution. But anyway, although it is very brief, has some reference to important, maybe the most important question in Spanish politics, which is the territorial question. I mean the division of power between the central power and the regions, mostly with two regions, the Catalonia and the Basque Country. And then the preamble, being brief, makes two mentions which are really important. First, one concerning the unity of the nation. In the first paragraph, it says that the Spanish nation, using its sovereignty, proclaimed his will too. I mean, the Spanish nation, using its sovereignty. I mean, it's a proclamation of the unity and importance of the nation. But later, it says that the will of the Spanish nation to protect all the Spaniards and peoples of Spain, exercising his human rights, cultures, tradition, languages, and institutions, so that there are these two affirmations. On the one side, an affirmation of unity of the nation, sovereignty of the Spanish nation, the only head of sovereignty. On the other side, protecting Spanish peoples, not only citizens, but people as collectivities, protecting them in cultures, tradition, languages, and institutions. That's mainly the two practical references that are introduced in the preamble. Now, of course, it's a preamble, and the question posed in many cases is, what is the binding force of this preamble? I mean, really, it's a part of the Constitution as such. It's binding on the authorities. I must say that our Constitutional Court is not very much in favor of considering that a preamble has a binding force. Considers it's a difference with other systems. You know, for instance, in the French system, specifically, their constitution proclaims the binding force not only of the whole Constitution, but also of the former preamble of the Constitution of 1946. So they give much importance to that. This is not the case with the Spanish constitutional Constitutional Court. And when the court has had to study the preambles of others, of the several laws, has considered that it has not binding force, and therefore it cannot be object of an appeal of unconstitutionality. The preambles are not binding norms. However, the Constitution, the Constitutional Court, in some cases has considered that if the preamble has not binding force, it has some legal effects, that it can have some consequences on the legal system, mostly because it can help to the interpretation of other mandates of the Constitution, but not directly. I mean, the Constitutional Court considered that if there is a mandate in the Constitution, this mandate can be interpreted at the light of the preamble. But the preamble as such, by itself, isolated, has not any binding force at all. The Constitutional Court found this problem mostly in a famous case. It was an appeal against the Statute of Autonomy of Catalonia, which is like some kind of Catalonian constitution, so to say. And then the preamble of this statute was appealed by a group of deputies, of parliamentarians, and then the Constitutional Court considered that really the preamble of the statute, which proclaimed that Catalonia was a nation, the preamble had not binding force, but it could be used maybe to interpret some of the mandate of the statute. And therefore, the Constitutional Court had a very interesting solution, where say, we do not declare the preamble of the Statute of Catalonia, we don't declare it unconstitutional, but we say that the norms of the Statute of Catalonia cannot be interpreted at the light of the preamble. So it's what we call interpretative ruling. Now, it means that if some mandate in the Constitution is not clear, the preamble can be used to interpret it. But the preamble cannot be invoked in order to justify parliamentary mandates, parliamentary laws, or on the opposite, appeals against the norms or whatever the government act. So that at this very moment, it might be said that the position of the court, as I say, it's considered that the preamble has mostly some kind of rhetorical value. And as we'll see, the preamble is not protected by the strong system of constitutional revision. So that, as I said before, really the preamble is an introduction, mostly symbolic, and the only special content is the one who refers of the Spanish nation and the rights of the people. And these mandates are reflected, and I'll talk about that later, is reflected on a specific mandates of the part of the binding part of the Constitution. I think for the moment, I think it's enough to introduce somehow this question. So thank you very much for your attention.